Viewers, good afternoon, and thank you again for choosing us as Heavens TV. Thank you for making us your #1 TV station. My name is David Ndeda, and this is the Dominion Desk. And as always, we have said this is a show where we attempt to give you a how on how to answer your when and your why. The mandate of this show is mastering the marketplace with kingdom wisdom. And yet again, we have Wakili speaking to us today. She is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, and therefore I'm going to allow her yet again to introduce herself to us, and then we are going to delve into the topic of today. Karibu Wakili.
Asante sana. My name is Vivian Olum. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and the managing partner at Olum Advocates. We practice here in Nairobi. Our offices are located at Hazina Towers, 19th floor, Suite 4, CBD.
And there's a question that came up last time, even before we get into the topic of today. There is somebody watching you and they would love to do what you're doing. They would love to be Wakili, they would love to be a lawyer. What does it take to be you?
All right, so after high school, usually the minimum grade that is acceptable is a C+. Yes. Then you go into university, you do a degree called Bachelor of Laws. Averagely takes 3 to 4 years, 3.5, 4 years. After that, you become a lawyer. Then after that, you go to the Kenya School of Law to do a diploma, which when you complete enables you now to become an advocate of the High Court of Kenya.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, we are going to delve into a topic that is affecting actually millions of Kenyans, and that is land acquisition, or rather basically land ownership. Now, you are looking forward to purchase a piece of land, or you're looking forward to delve into the real estate investment, and maybe even better still, you just want to know about land ownership. What are your rights as a landowner? What can you do to sell your land? Then this is for you. Wakili, just kindly help us to start from the beginning. Where does one go to, or rather, where does one begin when you want to purchase land in Kenya?
All right, so when you want to purchase land in Kenya, you have to go through a process that is known as due diligence. What due diligence is your own investigations into the authenticity of ownership and the validity of the documents that have been handed to you. All right. Okay. So then the first step is to get a copy of the title deed. Now, in a land transaction, there are two main parties. One is the purchaser, the one who is buying. The other one is referred to as the vendor, the one who is selling the property. Right. So the purchaser will ask the vendor to issue them with a copy of the title deed. Now, once they obtain this copy of the title deed, they will visit the registry of the area where this property is. Not just any registry, you go to the area where the property is and you go to their land registry. Now, when you go to the land registry, you will present the title deed and a search will be conducted. Yeah? Now, in this search, what you're looking for is you're looking for the registered owner. Okay. Yeah, that registry is what confers ownership of a property. Okay. So you're going there to check who is registered under this said property. Of land, yeah. Yes. Then you're looking at the size of the property. Okay. If it is the same as what is on the title. Number 3, you're checking for encumbrances, something called encumbrances. An encumbrance is a restriction that would limit the rights of the owner, right? A restriction such as having taken up a loan, so there is something called a charge over the property. So then if a person would like to sell this property, then they would have to get consent from the bank or the person who has loaned against the given a loan against the person who has loaned against the property. Okay. Right? Those are the things you're looking for at the land registry. Right? Okay. And then also at this registry, once all that is established, then you can request for a map. Right?
A map for the same land.
Yes, a map of the land that shows the demarcations of the land and how the other properties next to it look on paper. Yes, that is the document you'd request to leave the land registry with.
Okay.
Yes.
One thing you've said about that explanation is that the registry you go to is the registry that is within the locality where the land is.
Yes.
Can't you find, for example, someone selling a land in Vihiga and then you come check up in Nairobi? Don't we have a central registry where you can find all the information?
No, well, yeah, but if you want to get the details, in terms of probably the correspondence files, the green card, that is where all the important information is. That would be at the registry where the property is.
Okay.
Another thing I failed to mention is usually in properties there's what we call freehold and leasehold.
Okay.
Now the difference is that with freehold, when you purchase freehold, you own it outright. Yeah. If the purchase process is without flaws, you own it outright. Then there is leasehold, where you're leasing from the government for a total of 99 years, right? When these 99 years lapse, you can renew the lease. Yeah. If you purchase it while in the middle of this period of lease, then you just find out how many years are left, so that you're aware that when the lease runs out, you must go and renew it as the current owner.
Okay.
Yes.
I understand. Now, does that one mean then that no one completely owns land in Kenya? Is it totally completely a case of leasing it for 99 years, or do we have full ownership of land, or you have to keep on renewing it after the 99 years?
Yes, the ones that are on freehold, those ones are owned outright. But the ones that are on leasehold, you pay something called rent and rates to the government.
To the government.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I don't know whether you've answered this, but maybe just in point form, what are the requirements other than the title, a copy of the title deed? What are the other requirements that one who is purchasing the land would go for on the stage of due diligence? You want to know whether it is credible or not. What are the requirements?
At that initial stage, all you require is that title. Once you have gone and investigated the title at the registry and you're satisfied, and you also have a copy of the map, the next step is to go and do a site visit. It is important to go to that place to see if what is on the map and is on the registry is the same as what is on the ground, right? When you go to do a site visit, you make sure you go with the vendor and a surveyor, right? Now, the purpose for the surveyor coming is so that they can put beacons up, yeah, for demarcation, just to avoid squabbles later on, yeah, disputes regarding the boundaries of the property, right? So when the surveyor goes and demarcates it for you, then it is recorded that you are now sure that the beacons are here, and this is where my land begins and this is where my land ends. Yes.
So basically beacons are for demarcation.
Sorry?
Basically the beacons are for demarcation.
Beacons are for demarcation of your property. That is done by a surveyor. So when you're going for the site visit, make sure you go with a surveyor, right? And then there could be issues with the property in terms of what we call latent issues. Now, latent issues are issues that defects, let me call them defects that you may not see with your eye. For example, like I said, like a loan is charged to the property. Those ones are found at the registry. Then there are patent defects. For example, you can go to the property and find that it is so swampy that probably what you wanted to purchase the land for is not feasible with the property that is in place. So those are things that you see with your eyes. But the latent ones are the ones that are hidden from your sight that you will see at the registry.
Okay. A typical example, you've mentioned a title deed as one of the documents that should be presented priorly. A typical example of a land that was communally owned, or example, I don't know which name to use, a land that was owned by my ancestors, so it is in their name, but then it is me that is selling with a different name. How do you substantiate the same?
That would be fraudulent. If it is communally owned and you want to sell it as David, that is not allowed.
So
that
if
would be
it is owned by my ancestors, I cannot sell it as...
if it is owned by what you can sell, right? If, for example, your family had property, usually that property is probably under the name of the mzee, Yeah? So in such a case, maybe the mzee has passed. Then we can go through the process of succession, what we talked about last week. We would go through the process of succession, and then all the beneficiaries who are his dependents and his children and whoever else he would like probably to grant inheritance, they would each get a piece. So then if you wanted to sell, you would sell your own piece.
Okay, under your title, your name
under
now.
Under your own title.
Okay.
After the process of succession, then your piece would be registered under your name. That is what you have a right to, not the whole property that belongs to mzee, if that makes sense.
Okay. It does. Now, we understand that all parcels of land in Kenya, they are under the Ministry of Lands. What role do they play in the whole process of buying and purchasing of land? What role do they play?
All right. Usually, like I've mentioned, the land rates and land rents. Other than that, usually if you're purchasing like agricultural land, you would need consent. Yeah?
From the ministry?
Yes, you would need consent from the Land Control Board. Okay. Yeah? In terms of whether it is okay to purchase the land the way it is or whether it has been subdivided. Even if you want to subdivide and things like that, you have to get consent from the Land Control Board. Yes, as far as getting consent, it's the Land Control Board on agricultural. The one for the leasehold is just to make sure that the land rates and rents are up to date. Payment is up to date, yes.
Now let me pick this directly. Once a purchaser has obtained that relevant information that you've just talked about, what role now does the land registry play? Rather, what is the next step now?
All right, so the next step is now an agreement between the purchaser and the vendor. Now, this is where an advocate like myself would come in to help the two of you draft a document, yeah, for the purchase of land. Now, this document, this agreement, purchase agreement, it would give terms and conditions of the sale, right? It would talk about the purchase price. How much is the land going for? It would talk about how much you are paying for deposit.
Or it is not just something that is decided by a person. You have to come together.
You have to come together, yes. How much is the deposit? How long are we going to take? When would be the completion date? When am I issuing you the original title at the completion stage of the sale? That is what this document would have, and then it would have to be signed, yes, by the purchaser, the vendor, witnesses, and advocates, yes.
So there is a valuation that normally happens in the same stage. You do a valuation of the land and then you can now determine the price. Okay, now just after the purchase is verified by the purchaser, rather it has been verified by the ownership, what now happens next? After a visit to the land, a survey, what happens next?
You've talked about valuation. Now, usually valuation, it helps the purchaser to make sure that they are buying the property at the correct market value, for one. Secondly, there is a tax that the purchaser pays that is called stamp duty. Stamp duty on land that is within the municipality is 4%.
4% of the value of the land?
Of the value of the land. And then outside of the municipality is 2%. If there is a charge on the property, you also pay stamp duty at 0.1%. Yes.
What is a stamp duty in layman's language?
It is a tax. When you are purchasing the property, there is a tax that you pay the government. So that is what is known as the stamp duty. Yes.
Now, we are living at a time when we have social media and we find everybody advertising that they are selling land and even the price. I'm even learning today that a valuation has to be conducted. Somebody just wakes up and they decide, I want to sell this land, parcel of land, for a particular reason. For example, they have an emergency. Now, are there specific red flags to look for when you see such advertisements, or rather even when you're about to buy land? Do we have any specific red flags to look out for?
What I have talked about in terms of due diligence, that is the work of the due diligence, to investigate prior to you getting involved. You make sure that everything is in order in terms especially of ownership. Who is the registered owner? Number two, that is very important, is what I call encumbrances. If there are any restrictions that limit the rights of the owner to sell. Yes.
Yeah, an example of what you said, the loan.
Yes, for example, the loan. Okay. Or for example, there are squabbles maybe within the family with regard to that property, and one of the family members has put a caution or a restriction, then that should be visible within the information at the registry. Yes.
Now, God forbid, we have very many parcels of land, especially in the municipality or rather within the town. It is so difficult for someone to know that this is indeed the right owner. So many people actually have ended up buying these pieces of land fraudulently. A very good classical example of what happened in Kitengela, I believe just a few weeks ago, of a lady who gave her title to somebody else and then they changed the ownership of the land. So now, what do you do in case you realize that your land is being claimed by two people, rather somebody has obtained it fraudulently?
Okay. I can say that the register is almost something that is sacred. If I can use Kiswahili, hiyo ndio msema kweli, right? Now, there are times when, of course, there is a problem even at the registry, because that work is done, of course, by human beings, right? Now, when there is a problem at the registry, usually we go back in history. Look at the correspondence files. What is called the correspondence files. They have like extensive information on the history of this property. Then we start from that point and move forward up to the point where we know that this property belonged to such and such person. If you sometimes go and look at just go and do a simple search, it may not give you all the information that you require. It might not give you the real information that you need with regards to that. If at all it is involved in any fraudulence, then you will not be able to see it at that point. But if you go all the way back into the history, then you will be able to pinpoint where the problem began, where the issue of fraud may have been introduced. Yes.
A very classical example, actually, let us now be real. There's a lady I hosted once on an interview, actually, typically from Nakuru. Let me not mention finer details because this is still an active case, I believe, in court. This is a lady who obtained a piece of land, a parcel of land in Nakuru, long time ago, before Nakuru became even a city. And then they were selling the pieces of land at a very low price. So now when it became a city, automatically now the prices hike and many other things. So somebody else, I don't know whether in the registry or something happened, somebody else went and changed. I don't know what really happened, but now when she went to search, she realizes that the land, her land, which she has the documents and title and everything else, has a double entry, her and somebody else. How do you deal with such?
Just as I mentioned, that would now be something fraudulent at the registry. Now, somebody like that would probably require the court to intervene, right? When the court intervenes, then it will request and summon the registrar to issue all the documentation with regard to this property, so that if it is a double entry, then it is a mistake on the part of the registry. The registrar would take ownership of that mistake, and then probably the court would issue orders to have it changed or to have it rectified. Yes.
Okay. You have mentioned this, I believe you have mentioned, other than the transaction, rather the price of paying for the land, do we have any other things? I think you mentioned the stamp duty and what have you, but now in point form, just tell us, what other things do you pay for other than the initial purchase, the initial price of the purchase of the land?
Aside from the purchase, it is that stamp duty that I talked about. Another thing that I forgot to mention when I was talking about consent, that you would need consent from the Land Control Board. Another consent would be spousal consent, right? When there is a couple that owns a property, right? The husband or the wife cannot decide to dispose of the property without the consent of their partner, right? So then when you're purchasing a property, it's very important to find out, right, if this is a matrimonial property, if it is a family property, before you engage. Now, usually, many times it may not be easy for people to find out. So when you do site visits, right, talk to the neighbors, talk to the local chief. Neighbors have information
concerning the piece
concerning
of
the property. If they are squabbled,
Yeah.
they'll tell you, oh, this fellow is married, huyu mtu ako na bibi or whatnot, then you will know, because maybe they're trying to dispose of the property because only his name is in the registry. However, it is matrimonial property. So then you must be very sure that this person has got the right to sell it on his own. If they don't, then the spouse must consent. Yes.
In writing?
In writing.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that. Now, after everything is done, now we are at the payment stage. Do you have a suitable way for payment, maybe for records? Do you advise that somebody pays via bank or cash or whichever? What is the most suitable?
Well, usually when an advocate like myself is involved, they would use the advocate account to make the payments.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
There are people who probably do not engage an advocate, which I do not recommend. Yeah. But there are people who do not engage advocates. Then it is an agreement like any other, where the two of you agree. Then it is up to the two of you to keep your records of who made what payment when. There are people who make cash payments, but then there is a note of acknowledgement, right? An acknowledgement note, my name is such and such, on such and such date I received such amount of money that is for the purchase of such and such land, and I sign. Right? So if there is no advocate or any other party involved, and it's just the two of you, and you decide maybe we are friends, so there should be no problem, then make sure that you have that note of acknowledgement every time you give money, especially cash. Probably things like M-Pesa, you would have a record, but it is very pertinent for you to have that document that states that I have received or I have issued this amount of money to such and such person for this purpose. Yes. Okay. So just as you said, when advocates, or rather when you are involved, it is better when they pay using the bank or something that can be traceable. Something that can be traced. Yes. Okay. Now, after payment, we are almost there. After payment has been made, what next for the land to be transferred from the vendor to now the new owner? What next? So then there is a document called the transfer, right? The transfer and the original title deed will now be taken to the registrar. Oh, this is the point now where the original title deed comes. Now the payment is complete. You people have agreed that it is done. Now what is left is to transfer the property from the purchaser, from the vendor to the purchaser. So then you take the original title and a document called a transfer, right, to the registry. And then once they process that transfer, they will change at the registry the name of the owner from the vendor to the purchaser, right? And then when the process is complete, the old title will be destroyed, and then there'll be a new one under the name of the purchaser. Okay. Yes. Now, roughly how long does it take for the transfer to happen? Right from does it depend on specific things? It depends on the registry. Depends on how fast these vendors and purchasers move. It really varies, but it shouldn't take more than 3 months. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Wakili. We really thank you. We have come to the end of this show. We thank you for making time for us. Every other time we call on you, you have made time, and you have come and you have told our viewers quite a lot of information that they need to know, especially at this time when people are stealing from others. I have a parcel of land, and then when you go check, it isn't there, but you've already made a payment. Now we have realized that there is a due process that has to be followed. So we thank you for that. Maybe as we part, as we are almost finishing, what would be your parting shot on this one? Yes, we realize that there's a lot of fraud, So I would recommend that be careful, right? Conduct your due diligence. Engage the professionals who are going to help you, yes, to protect your interests and know your law. It is very important to look for information. Information is power. So look for information and engage the correct professionals to assist you. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And viewers, as we always say, Wakili is available just in case you need services, such services. You can feel free
to reach out to us. Our number is always available to listen to your request. Our number is 0700-127-571. Now we have come to the end of episode number 2 of Dominion Desk. And remember, as we said here, we are always going to make sure that you master the marketplace with kingdom wisdom. Thank you for watching. See you again next time. God bless you.